on that by the panel. My carrots are
Howdy. It is normally my tendency to stand during these services, but I'm momentarily, this is appropriate to stand before one's superior officers, but I'm afraid my knees are knocking from the content of today's discussion, so I'm going to sit for a while and we'll see how it goes afterward. Hang on one second. So I don't know about you guys, it has been a very strange couple of weeks for me. It began with coming down to San Diego about a week or so ago, in connection with promoting my autobiography, Becoming Superman, which is coming out next week. Some of you I think have copies already. It's from HarperCollins Voyager to be exact, and the editor David Pomerico is here somewhere and ushered them both through to completion. What we did was we went through a tour of my past here in San Diego. Could we do that another time? Thank you. Not to be firm or anything, but this is nervous enough for me as it is. We went to Chula Vista High School. I went to 4 different high schools. I graduated from Chula Vista High. Went back, barely graduated, I should add, from Chula Vista High School. Went back to some of my teachers there. We did an interview with her. Went to Southwestern College, which I also barely graduated from. Went to San Diego State, same thing. Actually, the funny thing about San Diego State is I graduated twice. I got a degree in psychology and a degree in sociology, which means I'm qualified to be unemployed in 2 areas at the same time. And my father, who was a horrible human being, I'll get to that in a minute or two, wanted me to get a master's degree. I didn't want one, I didn't need one. He only wanted me to get it because he wanted bragging rights, and he pushed me into it with the relatives. And so I've been thinking, and they said, if we don't do this, I won't let your sisters go to college. Because they're even stupider than you are. Exact phrase to use. And so I went to the master's program at San Diego State, mass communications, hated every minute of it. Began self-sabotaging. I hit a point where I wasn't going to classes, wasn't taking tests. My grades dropped to the point where an academic advisor called me in and said, we have to let you go at the end of the semester because, quote, our computer system isn't set up to handle GPAs and negative numbers. Best comment I've gotten from an academic advisor ever. What the hell am I going to do? Apparently my sister's done, but I can't do this. I decided I'll fake it. So I broke into the administration office at night. Didn't change my grades. What I did do was I added my name to the program they used to print the graduation programs. Told my parents I'd done a year early. Rented a cap and gown, forged a master's degree based on my math on my bachelor's. Showed up on graduation day praying that nobody discovered the subterfuge. My name's in the program where it should be. I go sit with my class, proper row, proper task. What the hell? Shh! We stand up, we sit down, pictures are taken. 2 weeks later, the degree arrives in the mail. No one knew for 10 years. My sister ratted me out. Because my dad was saying, you should get a master's degree. Your brother got one. No, he didn't. He fucking liked me. And the last stop on the tour was 496 4th in Chula Vista, where I got jumped by a bunch of guys trying to join a gang as part of an initiation thing. And back then, I'm not sure if it's the same way now or not, but we got into a gang where the student killed somebody. Blood in, blood out. And these 6 guys proceeded to attempt to beat me to death for 10 minutes. You can do a lot of damage in 10 minutes. I was curled up against the fence to break my kidneys and internal organs, but I got this scar from there, tore this there in half, internal organs were damaged, this hand was broken. The only reason I'm here now is a guy thought they were trying to break into his car and turn the lights on and he took off. So that was very strange. And then today, an article comes out. When you do an autobiography, you're a genre guy, you think only genre publications are going to notice it. And today, huge photo scrapes came out in the New York Times about the bio. So this is completely screwy. And as I've been doing these publicity things for the bio, the most common questions I get are, why did you write the bio and why now? The simpler part to answer is why now? Because there's a window when you're sort of allowed to write your autobiography. If you do it too early, you're presumptuous. You know, I'm 20 years old, I'm writing my autobiography. I don't think so. If you wait too long, there's a danger of hitting that point where the only things you can remember anymore are the things that never actually happened. And the reason why I wrote it in the first place goes back to why the nervous-making part of this conversation, which is, I've kind of done a disservice to fandom for a long time. I need to correct that. Those of you who have seen me more than once at these appearances, and what the hell is wrong with you in the first place, know that I've been saying for a very long time that if I can do this, anybody can do this. And the problem is, whenever someone would say, well, what does that mean? I would sort of gloss over it. And therefore the comment didn't really land, because I figured I may have come out of college saddled with debt, which I did. Maybe I have no discernible personality, which is true. Maybe I have a face only Homeland Security could love, also true. But they didn't have the whole picture to understand what that actually means, and if I can do it, anybody can do it. And I realized, no, I need to tell that story. It's about me, my family, my father, who was a Nazi sympathizer, a wife beater, an alcoholic, a brutal, violent, horrific human being. The most evil person I ever knew was my own dad. My mom, who was, when he met her, she was an underage prostitute, working at a brothel in Vallejo. And I was conceived in a brothel. And that's kind of a hard part of a conversation to have, but where do you go from there? How do you follow that up? And we moved all the time when I was growing up, every 6 to 8 months, different city, different town, different state. We lived off Skid Row. We lived in homeless shelters. We ate at homeless food kitchens. The projects in Newark, I was a kid who lived in a homeless shelter where there was no furniture. I slept on a mat on the floor with roaches and bed bugs. And I was embarrassed by that. And I can't talk about that because I've always worked very hard at presenting an image of someone who comes from, you know, I'm okay, I'm all right, and I am. But for that message to land, I needed to be more forthright. Because the message of everything I've ever stood for and the bio itself is, you know, it doesn't matter where you come from or what your background is, or what resources you have or didn't have. You can choose to change your life and you can succeed if you follow your dreams. One of the things that was most important to me growing up, almost accidentally, I wanted to kill my father, but laws. But what I discovered I could do at the age of 12 was I could choose to negate him. So he was a smoker, I wouldn't smoke. He was a drinker, I wouldn't drink. He was a misogynist, I wouldn't be. He was a racist, I wouldn't be. And instrumental to being able to make that choice was something that every person in this room understands. Comic books, heroes, Superman, science fiction. As a kid, I came across the literature of imagination, but also literature of choice. You could choose to be a good guy, or you could choose to be a bad guy. In so many families that have abuse, and alcoholism, and violence, there's a notion of, this is how I was raised, this is who I am, I have no choice, this is who I am. No, you do have a choice. And the moment you say you don't have a choice, you've made a choice. And comic books help me understand that. Superman was a guy, who could have been the most horrific person in the world. No one ever could have stopped him, but he chose differently. He never hit anyone who didn't hit him first. And comic books saved my life. Science fiction saved my life. It led me into a life of crime at one point, because we were living in Newark, New Jersey in the projects. If you know what that means, you know what that means. And I couldn't afford to buy books. And I wanted to read a lot of science fiction, the kind of science fiction that the libraries of the school didn't carry because it was kind of all the new wave, hard-edged science fiction stuff. So I embarked upon a life of crime. I would go into a liquor store that had spinner racks in the back with romance titles and mystery and thriller and science fiction, and position the mirrors to create a blind spot and put the book in my jacket or my notebook. I was like 13, 14. And scoot out. The problem was, because I admired Superman, because I admired his values and ethics, I thought, well, I can't keep them, because he wouldn't. So I would read them very carefully, not to break the spine. When I was done, flap them under my textbooks, and then bring them back to the same store. I put them back in the spinner rack. I thought, at the time, I hope I don't get caught putting it back, because who's ever going to believe that? And who in juvenile hall hearing that I've been A, arrested for stealing books, and B, also putting them back? It's not going to kick the crap out of me. Superman has always been a huge part of my life, in very weird ways. Well, it was a few years ago at the Chicago Comic Con, and I was in the dealer's room, and like here, that they're 7 or 5 acres long. And I heard someone yell, "Stop it!" And from down this long line of cubicles in the dealer's store, I saw this guy running this way. He was in his 20s. He had a bunch of original artwork he just stolen off of somebody's table. And everyone else parted like the Red Sea. Gone, And I tackled the mofo. Brought him down like a gazelle. And the guy whose booth it was caught up with me. We held, the guy from the cops to show up. At one point, the organizer comes over to us and says, "Who captured you? That's the guy from the Babylon 5. Don't tell him who I am." What is wrong with you? Cops take him away, and the guy says, "Why'd you do that? You could have been seriously hurt." I brought him to where I was standing at this booth in front of a 10-foot-tall cutout of Superman. How could I stand in front of that, in front of him, and do nothing? And the mythic power of storytelling and science fiction and comics is responsible for every person here today being here. It awakened something in you. It brought to life something for you. It meant something to you. And that's what the book celebrates. That there's a mythology of choice. The mythology is not alive, but the idea of stories based on choice. Ideas based on choice. That I wanted to say to those who, also come from hard circumstances, whose families may not be the most supportive in the world. People like us who have ideas outside the mainstream. That there is hope, there is possibility, things can work out. And there's a lot more in the book than that that's pretty horrific. The first half is all the growing up, so the second half is all the showbiz stuff. I wanted to put that out there because someone had to. And that's that part of that spiel. Thank you. Pardon the nervousness. I'm sorry. So on the professional side of things, he said, turning to happier topics. I always tend to give a book report of where things are currently on the writing side of things. And in addition to the bio, I just sold a novel to Simon & Schuster, a mainstream novel. I took a break 4 years ago from comics to do something else because I had gotten kind of too comfortable doing comics. I had written like 300 or 400 comics, and there's like 13 million individual copies on the world. And I thought I need to challenge myself with something I don't know how to do. I want to take a break from comics, and I wrote the bio, wrote the novel, which is a mainstream novel told in a very untraditional format and controversial subject matter. This could go wrong in so many ways. Writing a pilot for USA Network, me and Brandon Sanderson, some of you may know that name, are collaborating. Thank you. It's not one fan clap. And there was one more I was going to mention, so oh yes, of course, also the most important one. So many of you know who Bill Hamos and Axel Alonso are. Bill was publisher of Marvel Comics for many years. Axel was editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics for many years. Recently, they formed a new company called Artists, Writers, and Artisans, AWA. And they came to me and said, we're going to create a creative council. Do you want to be at the lead Jedi, on the Jedi Council? Sure. Because what they wanted to do, and it's so extraordinary, is what they wanted to, up front, create a shared universe in ways that haven't been done before. They didn't know how to do it. When someone doesn't know how to do something, my phone rings. And because most comics, you start with a character here and a character there, and you begin to intersect. It's like certain cities that grow up in sprawl where they didn't really have a plan for it. They put the street here and the street there, and it kind of comes together in this lopsided kind of way, versus a planned out city. And I said, this can be done, but you will have to allow me to do things in ways that no one's ever done before. That's what I like to do. And to create a way of doing a shared universe that no one's done before and create a new paradigm. The DC comics came up during, they hit the popularity during the 40s and early 50s, and they're all pretty much authority figures. Batman's a cop, Superman's a cop, Hawkman's an interstellar cop, Green Lantern, also interstellar cop, Flash, cop scientist. They're all authority figures. The Marvel comics came up in the 60s where it was more about anti-authority figures or non-authority figures. So Spider-Man's just a kid, the Hulk answers to nobody, Bull answers to nobody, X-Men are guys on the run. And I said, what is the paradigm now? That's what we have to get into. Because my sense is that millennials get a bad rap, to be honest with you. They're pilloried for not having ambition, for putting experience ahead of owning things so they can't afford anything, number one. They come out of school saddled with debt. The bridge between degree and job is more or less gone. They haven't got the same opportunities as those who came before them. They're going to inherit a world that's basically a radioactive ball of tinfoil. And for this they get better. And I found there's three emotions that run through this particular group now. There's anger at not having those opportunities. There is hope that somehow this is going to work out. Someone's going to figure it out. And then there's apathy. Those who have checked out. Those who just have given up. And we need to speak to that group. We need to give them the hope that only this kind of mythology, this kind of storytelling can give. For a while I worked in Vancouver on a show for 2 years. And I would go to Wednesdays, like clockwork, to the comic book store. And the comic store was located on Granville Street in downtown Vancouver, which is also where a lot of the young folks would hang out. A lot of homeless, the runaways, the throwaways, those who would sort of either given up themselves or been given up on by the world. And some of them would wander through the comic store.